read from Alone Growing Up in Alexandra, and we are still on chapter 9. And chapter 9 is titled Bankrupt. And you will recall that in the previous video, I had already started sharing, this whole process of going down. I spoke about Mr. Brian Strang and how Mr. Brian Strang wanted to help me, wanted to save me from myself, offering, a lifeline, so to speak, but it's a lifeline that I couldn't see, I couldn't hear. And then the last video, I spoke about the wisdom from Dr. Raymond Ackerman when I was invited to the workshop, entrepreneurial workshop. Once again, he offered some wisdom which I couldn't hear. I could not hear it. There comes a time when when your problems or your challenges feel so big, so monumental that they make you contract. They actually make you navel gaze. So I was so contracted. And when you are contracted, especially when you're contracted by problems, there is no advice that you will hear. You won't hear any of that, especially advice that doesn't feel like what you need. It makes me think of Skinny Cebu. I don't know if you guys, yeah, Skinny Cebu. There was a time where he was on television. He was on being interviewed by someone, I think nearly Justice Malala, or some person was interviewing him, and he was losing money. He was basically going through sort of what I was going through, but at a larger scale with bigger amounts. And he said to the interviewer, I could be wrong about the guy who interviewed him, so please, I stand corrected. His video can be found somewhere in the socials. And he's like, listen, I don't want mentorship. I don't want advice. I don't want anything. I have all of that. I just want 5 million rands. And I remember we laughed about it on social media, but I understood exactly where he was at. I understood exactly where he was at. Sometimes all you think is that, you know what, the problem stuck at say, solve whether that's true or not, whether the 5 million would have saved him or not, that's a story for another day. But knowing what I know now, in hindsight, even if I had received 100K, 200K to rescue me for that situation, pay the suppliers, pay this, I think I would have found myself in the same situation again, unless a full-on mindset change came with that money, or a board for my business came on, or literally someone like him, Brian Strang, came along and really held my hand, and someone running my finances. I could not do it on my own. If you were to hand me 200K then and kept me as I was going to wind up getting into the same trouble. So what Exquisite Interiors, which was my business, needed was, yes, capital injection, but also it needed a team. It needed a finance person who is internal, like a financial director who will help with pushing the margins high, who will, the sales, the strategic alliances, the stakeholder management. I was top. I was top. I mean, when my business was going under, I was still getting faxes. Faxes were a thing then. So that's how long ago it is. That's how old some of us are. I was still getting a fax from department of whatever, giving me an order of an office furniture, like a quote that I quoted maybe months ago. They're now finally buying. I am going under, but sales is still coming in. But I can't service those sales because no supplier wants to supply me anymore until I pay them. And, some of the orders I received, I can't get paid because I have not delivered. So if you don't pay the supplier doesn't supply, you literally do not have a business because your business is based on their material, the stock that they have. And so capital injection would have helped at the time because I would have then paid the suppliers that I owed, but then I would have needed to have a board that makes sure that things go according to plan. A financial manager would manage those margins, and I would have probably been paid a salary. Maybe not a salary as in monthly like an employee, but there would be a portion that goes to me for the work that I'm doing. So without all of that, even if I had had the money, I think I would still have gone under. So the advice that I got from Dr. Raymond Ackerman to say, maybe have a better agreement with the suppliers, maybe just explain your situation, sign contracts if you have to, but ask them for time. Because what Dr. Raymond Ackerman said was, if you don't have money, use time. Use time. And then in that 90 days before you pay them, find a way of making that money grow. Take the supplier's money, put it in, I don't know, some call account or one of those, accounts that will increase your money. put it somewhere where it can grow fast. And then so that it creates some capital for you. So that was the advice he was giving me, but I couldn't hear it. I was too much in my problems. I was also afraid. When you're afraid, because like I'm spooked, this is a baptism of fire. All of a sudden, it's hitting me. Right, man. The first 3 years, the first 2 years of business, nah, it was just honeymoon. This is the real deal. And the business person was not there. It was still the salesperson, the marketer, the PR, the communication person that was running the show. But the business person had not yet developed. She is here now, sort of. I think I've grown. I still don't consider myself hardcore entrepreneur, but I think I know a lot about how a business will work. I can give advice. I can mentor someone. I have actually done that before. So, but then when I was in my 20s, that was not available. So today I'm going to read up on where I left off. So where I left off was when I was fighting the lawyers. Again, something that you didn't know. You don't know. I didn't know that you can't just go to a lawyer and say, hey, listen, don't send me someone. So I'm gonna read another very sensitive one. I hope I don't cry, but I've been practicing, so I'm not gonna cry. If it means I must pause, I will pause. But I'm gonna just read up on the visits that I used to have from the sheriff. So much so that I ended up knowing him by name, Mr. Du Plessis. So for those of you who don't know, for those of you who've never been in trouble with the law, for those of you who are good girls and good boys who pay your bills on time, who've never run businesses, who've never had to owe people money to a point where you get someone sent to your house. The sheriff runs so a district would have one sheriff, like an area would have the same sheriff. So you don't get different summons from different sheriffs. It would be the same guy who comes and gives you different summons from different suppliers because based on where I was living. So the sheriff came so often. I think he came around 6 or 7 times with different suppliers, mind you, different summons. I mean, I was in trouble. Hey, you guys, I was in serious trouble. So eventually, we got talking. So I'm gonna read from that point. And then after reading, I will then reflect on the rest of the story. The sheriff visited me so often that I knew him by name, Mr. Du Plessis. One afternoon, we started talking whilst his men were estimating the value of the furniture and furnishings in my house. So what happens is that you get the first summons saying, listen, Wakolota, you need to pay this by such and such a time. It's summons that no one reads. I never read them. I mean, I just never even went through them. I was just too terrified. I was just here. Like I was like an ostrich. So I don't even realize for there's a leeway you can go, you can, negotiate then. And then the second time they come to say, okay, what does she have? They come and now they evaluate what you have. And I had stunning furniture. If there's one thing about me is that I have very, very, very good taste with furniture and furnishings. No matter where I live, no matter how small, no matter how big. And I had a big house then. And oh man, I had the best. I had very, very expensive furniture. So they're busy now estimating, yeah, this could be this much, this could be this much. And then they give you about 14 days or so, 7 to 14 days, depending. And then if you have not paid, then they come and take the furniture that they've estimated. And that happened. The furniture did go. Okay, so his men were busy evaluating the value of my furniture and furnishings in my house. Mr. Du Plessis, how old are you, Miss Pule? He asked with a deep voice of concern. Because I mean, he's been coming there and he's seeing this little girl. I mean, if I kind of look youngish now, imagine then when I was in my 20s, I must have looked like 18 or early 20s. And he's like, how old are you? And I said to him, I'm 29, turning 30 in January. I answered. It was December 2005. My God, you are so young. You have a whole life ahead of you. He said again with a mixture of concern and pity in his voice. What do you mean, Mr. Du Plessis? I hear people use this phrase a lot. You have your whole life ahead of you. What does that really mean? I asked him now with tears starting to come in my eyes because, obviously when someone sees you and sees through you, it is bound to tear you up. And he said, It means you can still live longer than you've lived now. He paused and then added, at age 30, you probably have another 40, maybe 50 years ahead of you. 40, maybe 50 years ahead of you to turn your life around. If I were you, I would put the house up for sale right now because it's going to follow. And I mean, obviously, there was a lot of dialogue. I just couldn't remember all of it. This is the thing with the memoir. So the dialogue that's here, it's minimal and it's based on what I remember. But there was a lot in between that he shared, a lot of wisdom as well. So he said to me, if I were you, I would put the house up for sale before because it is going to follow. You did buy the house, right? Or are you renting? No, I bought it. I answered. This time I was now crying because, I mean, it's scary to say that o rekile ntlo, and I'll talk about when I bought the house after reading. Which bank? He asked. Who's your bond holder? And I said, ABSA. Oh my God, I will never forget his face. I will never forget his face. He looked at me and he shook his head and he said, ABSA, they're the worst. They're the strictest. They are going to take your house. ABSA is the strictest. They will auction your house off for sure. How many months have you missed your payment? And I said four, maybe five. I hesitated, but in fact, I was not sure. That's how dazed I was, and that's how in denial I was. I wasn't even checking, but I know that there'd be months where I miss, and then the months I wouldn't miss, and then they would pull more than I thought. And I'm going to talk to this just now. Um, Put it up for sale, Miss Pule. Put it up for sale right now. They're going to take it if you don't. He emphasized. I did not listen. One of the followers, one of the subscribers, Junior, please don't judge me for this, like you judged me on the last episode. Please don't judge me this time. Yes, I did not listen. Guys, I did not listen to anybody. I don't know. That was not available to me. And I suppose that was part of my path. That is how hard I needed to learn. I don't know, but I didn't hear him. I had time, and you'll see why, because the house was auctioned off November 2006. And this conversation happened December 2005. So I had time, but I didn't. And I had already, okay, let me go back here. 4 months, maybe five, I hesitated. But in fact, I was not sure. That was how dazed and in denial I was. Put it for sale, Miss Pule. Put it for sale right now. They're going to take it if you don't, he emphasized. I did not listen. I managed to pay the bond off with some scraps of money that was coming in. I also managed to get a loan from a very good friend of mine, a nice big loan. So I would keep paying and I would keep up a little bit, but I would drop off again. I would keep up a little bit and I would drop off again. And I would still be ducking here and there. There was this other client that I remember it was a private company. It was a privately owned company. A guy he was an architect and he needed a lot of furniture. And he gave me a very, very big deal, for a privately owned firm. I remember his furniture was around 120K. So that gave me a little bit of a relief. I paid whoever I could and I supplied him. But it was touch and go still. It wasn't stable. And I was still ducking and diving other people. The new year came, 2006 came. I kept, ducking, diving, and there was a time where it was really, really bad. Sales were still not coming from the big orders. So the kind of big orders that I was used to were not coming. I was now relying on my credit card from FNB. You know that thing of taking your credit card, paying bond kayona, and and yeah, eventually, I mean, that was just not sustainable. I needed either a very, very big deal, the ones that I was used to, you're over 400K. I needed to make good margins and I needed to pay everybody that. So the backlog of what I owed was still higher than what was coming in. And eventually this just didn't sustain. I mean, money stopped coming in completely. I was in trouble with my clients who I wasn't delivering after they've given me purchase orders. I Because I couldn't pay suppliers handle. Other suppliers were so upset with me. They wanted nothing but COD, which I couldn't sustain. Friends couldn't help anymore. I mean, it was really, really bad. And eventually ABSA, like Mr. Du Plessis said, ABSA, auctioned my house out. November 2006. I'll never forget that day. I'll never ever forget that day. And, you know, I had bought the house. What I want to reflect on a little bit before I wrap this up is that while I was an entrepreneur, my mindset was still stuck on Black working middle class people. So I would compare myself with someone who has a stable job, who is employed, who has a salary. So I assumed that I need to live like them, which is why I bought a bond in the first, got a bond in the first place. And just to give you some timelines, so I started business in 2002. End of 2003, I'm looking to buy a house. I mean, I have a lot of cash, because the first year I did really well, even though the margins were kind of low, the volume of business was enough. There was surplus, there was cash flow. And you'll remember I didn't have staff then, I didn't have showrooms. I was still working from my townhouse. I had a little office in one of the bedrooms. And 2003, I did not have a showroom yet. I still had surplus money. And I just had a small office just outside the townhouse. And end of 2003, I think I had a lot of money. I had about maybe 400 or 500K. And I thought maybe it's time to buy a house. But I never thought to buy cash. I just thought, no, I'll have a bond. I remember someone saying, no, when you have a bond, it's easy because when you need money, you can draw from the bond. Yeah, things that were premature at the time, advice that was not necessary at the time. And I wanted to buy a house because I just felt like, yo, I'm a big businesswoman. I can't be renting. And I looked, I think I saw about three homes. I didn't even do a thorough job. I looked at about two, maybe three homes. I liked the one that I found. It was 650K. And because I'm an entrepreneur, um, the the bank, ABSA said, look, we'll fund you, but we need at least 10% deposit from you, which I had. No, they needed more. They said you're an entrepreneur, we need at least 25% deposit from you, which I had. All I remember is that I paid a deposit of about 180. So it was 150 plus around 38,000 for transfer fees. I paid them to the attorneys. I remember going to the attorney's office out in Bedford View, and I signed so many documents to buy this home. I mean, that house was stunning. It had a swimming pool, it had a rose garden, it had the best lawn, the bluest swimming pool. When I viewed it, obviously, it had three bedrooms, an ensuite for the main bedroom, and then Solo and Teve's bedroom, a beautiful big living room, a dining room, and an office, and a place that could be an office. But at the time, I was going to turn it into a TV room because I had an office. Mm. Ah, yeah, this is hard. I might be laughing, but this is hard. And so I'm just gonna honor the moment just to let it be what it is and let this story go for good. And yeah, I moved in end of, I think that December, November 2003, we moved in because I remember we had Christmas Day with family. It was just so stunning. Whole of 2004, I lived there. Whole of 2005, I lived there. And end of 2006, I was out. So I stayed in that house for about 2.5 years or nearly 3 years, and it was auctioned off. It was auctioned off after I think I had missed around 5, 6 months of bond payments because there came a time where there was no income coming in at all. There was nothing. And I remember when my furniture was gone, my fridge was empty, a fridge that was always full. Tebe, who was around 8 at the time. And it's like, what happened to all the stuff? What happened to all the stuff? And it was stuff. In reality, it was stuff. So yeah, that was probably one of the most painful chapters in my life. I wanted to just honor this moment and wrap it up. I will come back with the next video just to maybe read chapter 10. I won't read the rest of chapter 9. too much. And then we will be done with Alone Growing Up in Alexandra, at least the version of me sharing it here on YouTube. And I'll continue with the teachings and maybe hearing someone else's story. I have two guests, believe it or not, the people who will be sharing their stories. We'll see how the format goes. But for now, I just wanted to honor this moment. And I will come back next week, give the last of the book. I'll start with chapter 10 and give the final thoughts, and we will close the reading. I will probably return to reading the book again in the new year when we start with Alone from Hustling to Healing, which is book 2. And I'm going to go about it differently. You'll see it won't be as frequent. I will probably dedicate them once a month of reading from the book and sharing. Okay. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. Please do like and subscribe. Do let your friends, those of you who keep coming back, please ask your friends to like and subscribe. Even if they don't stay, we need the followers and the subscribers to grow a little bit. It has been a bit too slow. Even for me, I feel like, oh my God, really? Is it this slow? Although I do understand there's over a billion creators on YouTube. So it's a big space. I appreciate you being here, especially if you're still here towards the end. I appreciate it. And this is my story. I cannot wait to hear yours.